Dungeon Master's Diary, Entry 12. The party has managed to settle down and prepare for the trip to Greyforge in hopes to become more powerful. David, Atlas, and Henra have made their way to Vandalgrym, the capital of Caerwyn, in search of Stormcaller Ina. After asking around the city, they find themselves darting place to place, uncovering things that will help them. Talking to Grimdal, the head of smithing in Caerwyn, points them in the direction of an overseer in the mining quarters. They head over, speak to the kindly overseer, provides them with a map of the tunnels below in the singing mines. After about an hour's travel down, they come across an empty cavern, an ancient temple untouched, since perhaps the dawn of time lies. A harmonious, thunderous singing echoes across, with some much-needed translation, albeit clanky. They manage to uncover the answer to the word and the poem that locks the temple in time. The answer, of course, being love. They unlock the door and see a tall drow standing before a whirling storm in this temple. The song emanating from their almost agile frame. This is Stormcaller Ina, the first mage, a master of sorcery and wizardry. With 16 months of training, a whole year in Urathon, they come out on top, with them staying behind an extra 2 months to learn a little extra meta magic, and head back to the consulate building. In the time that they have taken, Dotrin has made his way to the Feywilds in search of answers to his ancestry, and met up with Zaktharos the Scaleless. Spending a few days with him uncovered much, and Zaktharos offered Dotrin a compromise. As Dotrin had asked, could a dragon born become a dragon, or age like a dragon? And Zaktharos complied and said a mantle of dragon shape will give him what he wants, and sought out to find Igarian, the adamantine dragon. A few months pass, and Zaktharos returns to the material plane to the consulate building in search of Dotrin, bellowing out a thunderous cry and call to bring him beside him. In his hands he carried a beautiful cloak, made by Tybal Brim, forged from adamantine dragon scales, its power untamed, and with some dire consequences, but powerful nonetheless. Daron, in the meantime, has passed on formula to their hunter friend Fish in order for him to completely enchant his weapon, Wrathful Angel, a sword that burns with a dark flame that seems to burn and disintegrate flesh with necrosis. And he is all the better for it. Now, fully equipped and ready to go, they have flown out to Greyforge in the Alabaster Gorge of Udexal, met with another riddle placed above the door alongside the 2 large keyholes that the liar's keys must be inserted into. The answer to this riddle: the sun, the stars, cosmological light itself. And the doors have opened for the first time in millennia. Now lies beyond the halls of Greyforge, and the dangers within unknown to even most men. So, it's a pretty good session. I find that it was mostly, just quite focused on Henra and Atlas. The player that was playing David was unavailable due to health reasons. Understandable. Don't want a player showing up when they're not feeling fit enough to do it. I myself abide by that as a dungeon master and a player, and my players respect me for it. So it's always good to get that out there. But yeah, it was just basically communication between the two of them. Both are storm sorcerers, so Atlas and Henra kind of work off of each other. They did. I kind of made finding Stormcaller Ina a little bit easier because at the start of the session we had this long sort of upgrade craze, which they upgraded the consulate building and the Witch of Namir, which is the ship, and had that already. Had a runewright hired, an arcano-tempestologist who's someone that studies magical storms. They also hired a blood hunter merchant, so David and Fish are covered. So it's not too bad. There's a couple other people that they have hired that are professionals. It's going to be pretty nice. They're like, man, one of these upgrades, fortification, that generally means we're going to get attacked. And I said, it might. You don't know. You might end up fighting randomly. I have a table somewhere, a small spoiler alert for players that will listen to this. The fortifications I added them because the encounter tables for the quote-unquote final fight is determined about which place the big bad villain boys will attack first, i.e. the Hands of Nasserai. I roll to see what they'll attack first, and it's either the fort, the ship, or siege weapons. And there's a couple other things in that table as well. But it's randomly determined. I don't know how successful they'll be, but they can do underhanded tactics, because I roll for that as well. Will they undermine you? Will they just flat out attack? So and so. But when it was finally the chance for Stormcaller Ina to show up, he is like Eurythan deep lore, like the oldest lore I ever made for Eurythan. Stormcaller Ina is probably I always say this about every NPC, is quite an interesting character in that they did teach the first mages in Eurythan before the world split apart, pretty much. Well, the lands broke apart. And it was just nice to see that the dispositions of Ina haven't changed despite how I've portrayed them, because never assigned sex or gender, so it's he, she, they, or them. It's whatever, really. So keep it ambiguous, keep them guessing. They don't really have one. I never assigned because I was like, yeah, nah. Probably when you've been trapped in time since forever, you don't really have comprehension of it. So yeah, it's like a bit of lore dump, but I'll probably do a dramatis personae on Stormcaller Ina just to get a grasp on who the first mage actually is. But it's basically a quick reference card. Is they were created at the dawn of time. They were the first drow, so they don't have like navels or anything. They're very old. Well, they don't look old because they've been caught in a time warp, trapped inside this temple. There is a reason for it. I will probably discuss it in a dramatis personae video, not here, because it will take a long time for me to explain why the temple was sealed and how the strange towers that have been appearing from decrypting the mantras on the temple are. It's due to bad translation, and they've ended up summoning the defense towers of the temple, which crop up and summon adverse weather like snow, rainfall, thunderstorms, hurricanes, so and so. But yeah, so Atlas and Henra spent 18 months, so a year and 2 months, because Eurothon has 60 months in a year and 4 seasons. So they spent 18 months training with Ina, learning the ways of a storm singer, which is kind of like a blade singer, but I sort of made it like it was originally a prestige class that I had in mind. I hadn't finished it by the time that Henra and Atlas had made it to level 21, because you need to be level 21 to get the abilities, and I was like, I'm not gonna trouble them, so I'll just give them it now. But it's really interesting. It's basically just a re-flavored Blade Singer, minus the weapon proficiency. They get things like Call Lightning. They can't be counterspelled if it's a lightning or thunder spell, unless there's epic counterspell or mystic counterspell, which counterspells anything below level 10, regardless, I believe. But not a lot of people have it. You need a wizard to know it, or a high level sorcerer, or a greater worm, which is like the oldest dragons in the world, which is like Agarian, Zathros, etc. I don't have the full names of every ancient worm that exists, but I do have quite a few of them. But when just having that nice little interaction, having a session dedicated to a player that I feel personally doesn't really get a lot of limelight. I don't know if that's because he doesn't like his characters appearing like at the forefront where the sort of trouble is. Which, to be fair, if you want your character to survive in my campaigns, yeah, it's always a safe bet. The end of the day, though, I was very happy to provide him with both a little limelight and boost in power. He is probably the most like HP wise buffest sorcerer out there. I think he has like 800 HP or something. It's something bananas, but I think it's due to the Izal set, which is his curiosity, and his training with Lorcan, which he gets Agonian Fortitude, which is whenever you gain like 3 times your level in HP and things like that. But due to the set, he gains additional on top of that, and his con is, I think it's like +7 at the moment, so he's pretty strong, and just kind of glad that he's got all the things he wanted, and he wanted to randomly generate what he was trained in. Unfortunately, some of the things that he randomly rolled, he had to be trained in other things, so I basically took everything that he would learn and remove them. But he rolled 2 10s, so, and then I think he rolled a D100 for each of them, and that determined a meta magic he would learn from Ina, and they are like epic meta magics. Improved quicken spell and triple spell and things like that. But what I've done for Atlas is different to Henra, because I don't want him having the same features, because otherwise those two going into the same dungeon, which is Greyforge, would make little sense, and it would be kind of useless, because it's like, well, we'll get the benefits of this character, but then what's the point of having this character have the same abilities if the other character is cast on everyone else? So it's okay, I suppose. But just having, like I said, a little limelight, I think hopefully he enjoyed himself. I certainly did, finally getting to unveil a very old character idea I had. I think I made Ina when I was about 14 years old, so nearly 10 years ago. So that's crazy. Dotran heading to the Feywilds was pretty good. I certainly didn't have a lot of energy at the end of the session due to room temperature problems, but I certainly had enough in me to give him like a glimpse of draconic lore in the world of Yurthan, revealing that that dragons environmentally adapt to their surroundings. So you'll have like crystal dragons, adamantine dragons, things like stone dragons, nature dragons, things like that. And it's quite cool, in my opinion. It does mean there are dragonborn descendants of these dragons. The only ones that rarely appear, and I mean super rare, are adamantine, crystal, and things like that. All the ones that are not vanilla are super rare. The rarest one is platinum, because there's only one platinum dragon, that's Bahamut, who's a god, and only has one draconic descendant, as far as I have created. We'll probably have had offspring by the point of 1664. So they're probably long dead, and their descendants have spread out. So who knows? Might eventually have a dragonborn character that's a descendant of these very legendary dragons. If so, I will randomly determine the chances of it. I will create tables for any players who want to play like an adamantine dragonborn. Doesn't mean that they have like immunity to crits. It just means they have sort of breath weapon type. But to tone it down, I would have to give them thunder breath instead of force breath, which is what the bigger dragons have, because it's like a very large thunderous boom, but it's like a shockwave, so it's just force. So yeah, I'll probably end up putting it as thunder. As for Daron, just having like time to finish Nightingale, create potions, and give Fish the recipe for Balefire, which I was surprised at him giving it away to him to make Wrathful Angel. I was very surprised. Fish is definitely a character that likes to name his weapons, like Bloodrender, Wicked Butterfly, Wrathful Angel, and he has got another weapon. I think he calls it the Claw, which it's not really a weapon. It's more like a like a chain that he pulls things towards him, or grapples a monster with, and it hooks into them, and he pulls them towards him, like a flying creature. Basically, it's a grappling hook with a sort of sharp, gauntlet-shaped hand on the end of it that grips into things. Yeah, just having that, and then the party prepping to go to Greyforge. It's a lot, but having one of the players not there, I was like, okay, I'll need to see what I can do away from the session, and ensure that he is prepped enough. Like, does he have enough arrows? Does he want any additional arrows? Does he need any training from Ina, who can train in magic? Not as much as an archdruid could. There are archdruid trainers that can do druid spells and ranger spells and increase DCs and attack bonuses. But I think David, as a character, is very buff, debuff, weapon focused. Like creating different damage types in his weaponry just to spice it up a bit. And just thinking about that, I will have to contact the said player and see how they're getting on, if they have any ideas, if they need any upgrades or stuff on top of what they already know. I am more than willing to help them. Yeah, it was just a nice little RP session before the chaos resumes. A couple of sessions of downtime RP. It's always nice just to have that levity and have a laugh. Even though we do have laughs in dire times, just to try and leaven the mood. I'm not too keen on having a depressing campaign. Good example being Curse of Strahd, and just being dreary, depressing, and just bleak. You have to have a bit of levity or something humorous, or like something like a reference that everyone gets and thinks it's funny, and just sort of brighten it up, or have a wacky NPC. Just like add a little sparkle to the beige of dreary campaigns or danger or serious moments. It's always an important feature, I find. Otherwise, your players and sometimes the dungeon master, I personally get disinterested in a world that I make bleak and dark and depressing. But yeah, I hope that Grey Forest doesn't pose too much of a challenge for them. They finally brought Charlotte Rosehammer with them, who's the crew smith and cleric that does not believe in revivification. So yeah, I mean, next level she'll be able to channel her own power because she has basically ascended into like demigodhood, because that's what a level 30 cleric does, and it's awesome. So she can be like, I still believe in the Lord of Iron, or the Iron Lord, and just be like, okay, I still believe. We can be friends, but I am my own power now. So okay, cool. That means you can revivify as you wish, but you have to get to the next level, which isn't much for her. I think completing one floor of this dungeon would do it just enough. She doesn't have much to go. Yeah, will be a very fun story to tell in Greyforge. You know, a place that's been untouched for so long. It'll be very, very fun. I'm hoping. Lots of puzzles, lots of riddles, a very classic dungeon. Insta-kill traps that can be reversed because it's a puzzle, or like a danger. Some of them are just insta-kill traps, but they are designed in a way that it's kind of hard to explain it. That it's almost, I don't think the word sentiment comes in. It's more, would you sacrifice yourself for others to continue? And given that there are two NPCs, one of which is the main reason they're there, which is Atlas, Charlotte might need some little justification to do such a thing, but she would do it. She was like, oh, I could be killed by, I don't know, disintegrate or fire, which she can't be because she's immune to fire and high temperatures. So yeah, she should be fine if it's a fire trap. If it's not, then she's boned. Yeah, we'll never know. They might never encounter them, depending on what rooms they enter. Yeah, that is all for this entry into the Dungeon Master's Diary. And as always, stay safe out there, adventurers.